for all of you in the coaching world, the parenting world, the difference-making world. So glad to be here. My name's Heath Esslinger with A Better Way Athletics, and it's a privilege to share with you today some things that I've learned on the coaching journey, and hopefully some things that will help you. And as we get this video out, some things that can help others as well. We're going to call this today maximizing potential. And as a coach, a parent, whatever, we want to maximize potential. The most fun teams to coach are not necessarily the teams that achieve the highest, but actually got the most out of themselves. It's the team that no one thought could get to the state finals, and you get them there, or no one thought could compete for a national championship, and somehow you find a way to help them get there. And so as a coach, one of the things I'm constantly trying to cultivate is this space where we can maximize each kid's potential. We take the 3 and we make them a 5. We take the 5, we make them a 7. We take the 8, we make them a 9. The most frustrating team or individual to coach is the one who we know is a 9, but they always perform at a 7. And if that's what's true of the athlete, we also know that's probably true of us as coaches, that it's not fun to compete for someone or be led by someone that always just kind of underachieves. And so today we want to look at, what does it look like to maximize potential? I'm going to show you a video here to start with. I show this often at the start of my coaching sessions, but just a funny video to kind of allow us to see maybe we fall into this category at times, and it's probably not a healthy category. So enjoy this, and then we'll reconvene back here in just a moment. Oh, wrong one.
Children learn a lot about life from sports. Teamwork, discipline, and fair play. Values that can only be passed on by a kind, caring, mature head coach.
We got to pummel them at all costs. I want you to play dirty if you have to, but don't get caught. Hit the field. Let's go. What was that?
I thought I had the shot.
You thought? You're thinking like a crazy person. Grab some bench. Perfect pass. Shot. Hey, you just served a plate of humiliation. How does that feel? Oh, my God. No! Get him off me! Pick up that piece of trash, Tom. Tuck in your shirt. What are you doing? Have a sense of pride. In fact, why don't you take a lap? Go! Faster!
You called a group of 10-year-olds losers.
Yeah, loser! Do you hear me? Loser!
Dad, you gotta lighten up.
I'm doing this all for you. So we can have fun, huh? Fun, right? Fun!
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah, huh?
Well, that was 2005, but it probably is true for many of us today. Maybe you're like me, you see yourself in those emotions. I know when I started out as a young, arrogant, thought I knew everything coach, I probably acted like that probably even did so at the end of my tenure at times. But the goal is, hey, how do we get better? So starting off with just what is a coach? Definition of a coach. I stole this from the 1500s. My friends at 3D Coaching always use this definition, but here's what a coach is. A coach is a covered carriage. Get the image here. All right, go back in time, not an Uber, but a covered carriage that takes a person of importance from where they are to where they want to or need to go. So a coach, not an instructor or a trainer. We live in a society today that we have tons of instructors and trainers, dynamically different from what I would consider a coach. I can help you with some instruction. It doesn't mean I'm your coach. And for all of those out there that are simply instructors, don't try to steal the glory from the coach, because you're not walking through all the difficulty with these young men and women. You're needed, you're valued, but a coach is someone who takes a person of importance from where they are to where they want to or need to go. And here's the image I love about this covered carriage, is that the covered carriage there is not just there to help them get to where they want to go, but it's also there to help protect them from the elements. And so if I'm a coach today, here's what I know I'm doing. I'm protecting this child or this person under my leadership from the elements that are trying to pull them away. And I'm also helping them to get to that place they want to or need to go. So that's our definition of a coach as we dive into these things today. So here are the questions we have to ask. And if a coach is a covered carriage that takes a person of importance from where they are to where they want to or need to go, then we have to ask 3 questions. 1, where are they? Where is this kid? Here's what I can tell you as a coach. If I'm being honest, I don't necessarily like where kids are at sometimes. I would love for them to come to me with more resiliency and a little bit more toughness and maybe even some more skill. And it's always nice when they can run a little bit faster and jump a little bit higher and do things a little bit better. But if I'm going to be a great coach, I have to ask, hey, where are they at? Because if I don't know where they're at, it's going to be hard for me to create a route to get them to where they need to go. Here's the second question, and this is big. Where are we? As we look at ourselves in the mirror, where are we at on this journey? One of the things that leaders, because I think we overuse the word leader, one of the things I think we struggle with at times is asking ourselves the questions, well, where am I at? I mean, what are the deficiencies I have? What are some things that maybe I need to overcome when it comes to my own coaching? And then the third thing we get to ask, and we love asking this question, hey, where are we taking them? Well, we're going to compete for championships. We're going to send kids to college. We're going to change kids' lives. Well, all of that stuff sounds pretty, but it really begins with us being honest about where we are. I love Siri. Back in the day, you had to get directions or you used an atlas. Well, the beauty of Siri today is this, is that I tell her where I want to go, and she gives me a couple of routes to get there. And it's fascinating that I could say, hey, Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I'm going this weekend, the exact address, and Siri will take me there. But what's even more amazing about Siri is not that she simply knows where I'm going, but she always knows where I'm at. When you plug in that address of where you're going, she always uses these 2 words in the opposite line, current location. And if we're not honest about our current location, we will never get to our desired destination. And so as a coach, I have to be super honest about my current location in order for me to get myself and those I lead to the desired destination. And so what are the coach killers today? Or what prevents us from being really good at doing just that? Taking people from where they are to where they want to or need to go. Taking this 3 and making them a 5, the 5 and making them a 7, the 8 and making them a 9. And what I've learned about 10s is you just try not to mess them up. And so 3 coach killers, I believe, plague our industry today. The first one is inconsistency. The second one is moodiness. And the third one is sarcasm. And so as I evaluate where I'm at as a coach, there's 3 things that will probably cause me to struggle. The first thing is inconsistency. The second thing is moodiness. The third one is sarcasm. And so inconsistency is this, is my inability to stay true to my rules and standards, my inability to maintain some sort of equilibrium in my verbal and nonverbal communication, and my inability to maintain some sort of like direction when it comes to my expectations. Man, if there's a one thing that I think can get us in trouble very, very quickly, it's inconsistency. I love what Mark Batterson says in his book, Win the Day. It's a great book if you want to check it out. But Mark Batterson says this: consistency beats intensity 7 days a week. Consistency beats intensity 7 days a week. You have seen it in the athletes you've coached. You got the girl or the guy that comes to practice once a week and they're a 10 out of 10, but every other day they're a 3. So if they're 7 days a week, they're a 10 one day, and they're a 3 every other day. That gets me to a sum total of 28. Yet if you give me a person who's a 8 every day, 7 days a week, well, you get a sum total of 56. And so basic math simply says, hey, if I can bring some level of consistency every single day, it's going to catapult me above the rest. What we expect of our athletes, we also have to expect of ourselves. If we were to look ourselves in the mirror and ask, hey, am I consistent with my rules and standards? Because if I'm inconsistent, it's a coach killer. Am I consistent in the way that I speak, in the way that I communicate? If I'm not, I'm inconsistent, that's a coach killer. Am I consistent with my expectations? Or do my expectations, are they constantly a roller coaster? That doesn't mean that there's years, hey, we're just not as good as maybe a previous year. But again, the goal is not to be as good as the previous year. Maybe you could be better. The goal is to maximize the potential of every single person that you've been given the privilege of leading and serving. And so the first coach killer is this, it's inconsistency. So when we're done with this today, here's what we do. We take a time out and we say, hey, what areas am I maybe exercising some inconsistency? I'm not even saying it's intentional. Listen, I'm super inconsistent as a parent sometimes. It's not because I don't care, it's because I'm freaking exhausted. And so the same is true in coaching. But if we never pause to recognize where we're at, we'll never get to where we're going. So, first coach killer when it comes to limiting our ability to maximize potential is inconsistency. Here's the second thing, it's moodiness. Man, I have a good friend, Jim Miller. He was the head coach at Wartburg forever. And for wrestling, I'm a wrestling guy. A lot of you on here may be volleyball people because we partner with JVA. But here's what Coach Miller would say. He called it motivation by choice. He said every day when I would walk from the office to the wrestling room, I had to drop all my baggage on the way. Here's what we would tell our athletes. Hey, don't bring that stuff on the court with you. Don't bring that stuff in the gym with you. Don't bring it. And then here's what we do. We bring it right in, and it's on our face. It's in our heart. It's through our language, all these different things. It's moodiness. Improvement will never happen because here's what moodiness creates. It creates eggshells. It's always just a little bit awkward and tense. All right. The athletes never know. Is it going to be coach A, B, C, or D? A, coach is in a great mood. D, we're probably getting just reamed out from the get-go before we even do anything. Has nothing to do with them. He's just bringing or she's bringing some baggage from the day, which we all do, and we haven't put it on the right shelf. And so improvement will never happen when everyone is walking on eggshells. And so coach killer number 2, as we seek to maximize potential, the first one's inconsistency, rules and standards, verbal and nonverbal, and expectations. The second one is moodiness. I have to be willing to get gut level honest with myself and say, am I all over the place here? And the best way you can ask this is maybe ask your assistant coach or a player you trust and say, I want you to be really honest with me. Would you consider this a trait of mine? Am I moody and am I all over the place? If you are, here's the good news. It's the first step to being liberated and maximizing potential. Now we begin to formulate a game plan to overcome it because it's in all of us. I promise you, I don't wake up every day just cheerful. All right. Somehow Chick-fil-A gets it out of their people because Chick-fil-A knows this. If their people are moody, we don't wait in the car line with 50 cars in it. But because they're not moody and they're consistent, we'll pull in that line with cars backed out to the road because we know they're going to deliver. So first coach killer, inconsistency. Second one is moodiness. Here's the third one, sarcasm. Oh my goodness. It is so prevalent. When I first got the job at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, head wrestling coach there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I can remember like the third day in the weight room listening to our guys talk to each other. And I was like, man, I got my work cut out for me because the most common language spoken on our team was sarcasm. If the most common language on your team is sarcasm, you're going to put a ceiling on connection, collaboration, and ultimately confidence. Sarcasm will ruin a team. Now you go, oh, you're a stickler. You don't want to have any fun. I promise you, no one wants to have more fun than me. All right. The vision of our organization is to restore the joy of sport. But here's what I want you to know as a coach. When amongst your athletes and amongst your staff, the most common language spoken is sarcasm, no one is hearing the true point of what you're trying to say. Like, it's not making sense. There's a lot of talking. There's very little communication. And there's a big difference in talking and communication. Sarcasm is talking. Communication is you and I being honest and transparent and vulnerable about how we can facilitate this feedback loop in order to get better. And so a lot of coaches don't even realize it, but they speak sarcasm more than any other language. And so, again, this is an area that you have to combat. You have to get gut level honest, and you have to look yourself in the mirror, and you have to say, what's the language being spoken on our team and in our program? And if it's sarcasm, again, here's the good news about today. It's the first step in being liberated. We changed the language. I can remember that first year, I just sat our guys down and said, look, I don't want to hear it. We're not talking to each other this way. We're going to communicate like young men. We're going to communicate in a way that builds each other up. We're going to speak honesty, but we're going to speak honesty for the benefit of others. A lot of people want to be honest with you to tear you down. The great ones, the programs and the teams that have a great culture, which is a huge buzzword that no one really knows even what we're striving for. The truly great ones, they have a culture that people are honest with each other for the benefit of each other. There's a lot of people in our lives today, they'll be honest with us in order to tear us down, in order to make us look bad, or in order to puff themselves up. A lot of times that's the common root of sarcasm. And so 3 coach killers when it comes to maximizing potential. First one, inconsistency. The second one, moodiness. You got to check it at the door. All right, get some help there. The third one is sarcasm. If sarcasm is the common language of our program or team, we will put a ceiling on connection, collaboration, and ultimately confidence, which at the end of the day, here's what it puts a ceiling on: performance. All right, performance is always built on a foundation. I often tell parents this, coaches, whoever, if you think you have a team or a kid who can go far, you better lay a foundation that's really deep. Because the further you go, the higher that building goes, man, the stronger that foundation has to be to face all the elements that's going to come at it. And so by eliminating these things in our program, here's what we do. We begin to lay a foundation that can carry the weight of maybe the accomplishments that the team can accomplish. Because again, we want to maximize potential. And so you say, great, Heath, tell me everything I'm doing wrong. But what's the solution? What's the solution here? I believe there's 3 things that can help us solve these issues. And we're going to open this up to the chat room at the end. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and then we'll answer the questions at the end. I'm getting a few on here. But so what's the solution? Solution number 1 is this: there's a clear definition of success. Solution 2, consistently communicated standards. And then solution number 3 is what I call strategic praise. And so clear definition of success. If I want to be a coach that maximizes potential, one of the keys to achieve that potential, all right, one of the keys to achieve that potential is a clear definition of success. If the only score you keep is the scoreboard, don't expect consistent, duplicatable, overachieving results. If the only score you keep is on the scoreboard, do not expect consistent, duplicatable, overachieving results. Every now and then you will get lucky and succeed, but it will not be duplicatable. As much as we identify what's wrong, we also have to be able to look and go, this is what worked. And so when I talk about a clear definition of success, here's what I mean. What is it that we value the most? Here's what coaches will tell me all the time. I value effort above everything. No, you don't. You value effort when it helps you win, but you don't value it above everything, because I never hear you point it out at practice. I never hear you call a timeout in practice and go, that's exactly what we're looking for when it comes to effort. Exactly what he or she just did. That's what we're looking for. Let's give them a hand. All right, right back to work. Because we in our ideologies and in our theories, it's important to us, but because we don't have a clear definition of success, we never see it happening, and we just pass right by it because we're so busy and our foot's on the throttle. You're talking to a guy who is guilty there. You have to be very intentional here. And so I would challenge you even today, when we end this, and we can talk through some of these things at the end because we don't have a ton of people on here today, but you've got to discover and uncover and then articulate what success looks like on your team, not outcomes. We all want the same outcome. All right. I've never met a kid or a coach who said, I love losing. All right. But just because you hate losing doesn't make you a competitor or a coach who knows how to overachieve. The ones who overachieve on a consistent basis have a clear definition of success. All right. And it can be simple things like timeliness. Hey, we're always on time. Attendance. Hey, no one misses practice. It could be gratitude. Hey, we point out other people doing well. I love celebrating other success. All right. Hey, when I see a player celebrate another kid's success, I'm going to call a timeout and point it out, because that's how we define success in our program. And so you take these things, you put them on a sheet of paper, and now all of a sudden you recognize them more and more. And now we can go to step 2. So the first thing is we have to have a clear definition of success. Do the people in our program know how we measure success? Because if you cannot manage what you don't measure. I had a coach tell me one time, honestly, the coach said this. She said, well, these things are just super hard to measure. And I said, free throws are hard to measure. Assists are hard to measure. Kills in volleyball are hard to measure. All these different things are hard to measure, but because we value them, we have a statistician. And so we have to do the same thing when it comes to the intrinsic qualities. We have to have a way to measure and manage that success. And so come up with, what do we really value as success in our program? And sorry, my dog's up there barking. Here's the second thing. We have to have consistently communicated standards. If you don't define the standard for your people, others will gladly define it for you. Like, what are our standards? What are our expectations? How do we show up? How do we win? How do we lose? How do we travel? How do we walk into a facility? How do we interact with adults? We have standards that are consistently and clearly communicated. It's not just what you are doing. It's not just what they are doing. It's who you and they are becoming. It's not just what we are doing, it's who or they are becoming. And so when we have consistently communicated standards, here's what we do. We tell everyone involved in our organization, this is where we're going. All right, here's where we're going. Here's where we're at. We got to work on these things, but here's where we're going. Many times, one of the things that will make a coach inconsistent and moody is that they don't know what success is, and they don't know what their standards are. They have all these images in their head, and they have all these ideas in their head, but they've never simplified it and articulated it to themselves, to their team, and to others. And so what happens is this: we're just inconsistent because there's no way to be consistent because we're just throwing paint on a wall. The second thing is it makes us moody because everything is so much work and everything is so emotional. And so when I have a clear definition of success, and I have consistently communicated standards that I know set the bar for our program, it will almost eliminate the first 2 coach killers. I mean, it evaporates much of inconsistency, and it takes away a ton of moodiness because we are so detailed in where we are heading. It doesn't mean we don't call audibles at times, but it means we have a clear direction. I love what Andy Stanley has a book called The Principle of the Path. And the principle of the path is this: direction will always determine destination. Intentions and theories don't mean jack or squat. Direction will always determine destination. Our definition of success and our clearly communicated standards set the compass on where we're actually headed as a program. And it tells those that are with us, hey, here's where we're going. Because again, if you don't define the standard for the girls or the boys on your team, they'll define it for you. I mean, they'll decide what effort looks like. The parents will decide it for you. And so we have to be very articulate there. And then the third thing is this: it's a clear definition of success, consistently communicated standards. And then the third thing is strategic praise. Man, one of the things that I think we neglect most often is that what we say matters most gets talked about the least. What we say matters the most gets talked about the least. If you are after certain behaviors, then you need to be very strategic with your praise. I am not asking you to be a cheerleader. All right. Nothing against cheerleading, but I'm not asking you to be a fake cheerleader that everything's just perfect all the time. Here's what I am suggesting: that what gets rewarded normally gets repeated. There's a great story of how they train whales at SeaWorld. And this is what they do. They bring these animals into a pool. They put a hula hoop on the bottom. And when the whale swims over it, they throw in fish because that's what whales eat. Then they raise the hula hoop up. The whale swims through it. They throw in fish. They raise it up in the water. Whale swims through it. They throw in fish. And then they take it out of the water. The whale projects itself out of the water, goes through the hula hoop. We go crazy, pay $10 for a Coke. And here's why the whale did that: because the trainer, the coach, simply threw in fish. What gets rewarded will get repeated. as I often sit back and watch, because I'm very much, I go to my kids' events and I usually don't watch them. I watch other parents and I watch coaches. And I love catching coaches and athletes doing things well. One of the things I've prided myself on is when I go to an athletic event, I try to catch a coach doing something well and I will email their athletic director, because most often when we're out there coaching, people only want to point out the negative. So again, I try to reward good behavior so that that coach will go, dang, man, I need to do that more and more. Well, what's true of us as adults is also true of the athlete. What gets rewarded gets repeated. If you value effort, call it out. I'm not saying give out stickers and candy. I'm saying pause, look this player in the eyes and say, I am grateful for the way that you represented this team. That's exactly what we're about here. It matches how we value success. It goes with our clearly defined standards. And I want you to know how much I value it. Do it publicly. Send an email to a parent, CC the kid, and brag on the kid for a behavior they exemplified in practice. Half the time we're dealing with playing time issues because it's the only thing we measure. If the only thing we measure is playing time and performance, people are going to be ticked about playing time and performance. And so when we know how we define success, when we have clearly communicated standards, well, now it gives us all these opportunities to strategically praise the behaviors that we know will lead to our teams overachieving and maximizing potential. The question becomes this: does it matter enough to me to kind of make some changes? Is it really important enough to me for me to make some changes? And so, 3 coach killers: inconsistency, moodiness, sarcasm. I got to address them. 3 what I would call coach accelerators: a clear definition of success, consistently communicated standards, and then strategic praise. I would honestly write down in my practice plan, because people will ask me, how do you implement this? Put it on your calendar, build it into your practice plan. 2 simple things. Hey, Mondays, we're focused on this trait that we value, this standard that we've set, how we define success. Tuesday, it's this one. Wednesday, it's this one. So it's on my calendar. Then I'm going to build it into my practice plan. I may write, if you have a practice plan and it's warm up, skill development, live scrimmaging, whatever, conditioning, whatever, in each of those boxes or spaces, here's what I'm going to do. I may write myself a little note. I know I'm going to have a chance to catch them doing this well. And I want to catch them. You have to catch them doing things right if you want that behavior to be repeated. It's so easy as a coach to only put the microscope on the things we want to correct. It's so easy to move that microscope to the things that we only want corrected. We have to strategically praise the behaviors we know are the byproduct of us maximizing potential and overachieving. And so, how do we change? I love this definition of change. So you may be sitting out there today and go, yeah, this sounds great. All right, whatever. Heard it before. Here's the best definition I've ever seen for change. The first thing we got to decide, you as a coach, remember where we are, where are we taking them? It starts with us. I've got to look myself in the mirror. My good friend Mark Cole always tells me, you can't be a tour guide to a land you're unwilling to visit yourself. I'm going to say that again. You cannot be a tour guide to a land you're unwilling to visit yourself. One of the most frustrating things I see in the coaching profession is when a grown adult has an expectation of a child that they have zero accountability for themselves. And listen, we are all guilty of messing up. This is not about perfection, but let's at least be predictable and make some progress. And so the first question we got to ask is, what do we want to change? Maybe we want to change our sarcasm. Okay. So the next thing, change will always occur when I'm discontent. What's wrong? What could we do better? And so, okay, we want to eliminate sarcasm on our team. All right, let's do it. Let's good. Let's write that down. Let's put an exclamation mark beside it. Now we got to get specific. What's the preferred future worth creating? So instead of sarcasm, here's what I want. I want our kids to speak life. That's my vision. I want to have a program and a team where, like, dude, girls and guys, man, they're just behind each other and they're for each other. Here's what I want you to know. That will never happen naturally. Okay. I'm raising 4 kids. I don't have to teach them to be selfish. I have to strategically teach them otherwise. And if I'm a good parent, and if we're trying to be good coaches, we will have a strategy and a vision for that. Once I have that vision, the next thing is I've got to take some first steps. What do we do? And then how do we go about creating that future? What are the first steps that I can take? And so it may, the first step be, I'm going to sit my team down. I'm going to address the issue. Guys or girls, here's where we're at. I've seen this kind of manifest itself over the course of the last few weeks. As your coach, I want to help us overcome this obstacle. Here's how we're going to overcome the obstacle. When we speak to each other, whether it's in the van, at a restaurant, on the practice court, or in a game, here is the way that we're going to speak to each other. 1, we're going to look at each other. 2, we're going to compliment each other. 3, we're going to be honest with each other, but we're going to do it for the benefit of that other person. We're not doing it to cut each other down. And so I will do some basic first steps to overcome what I want to change and what's discontent. Now, here's the negative side of this formula. Change will always occur when discontent is multiplied by vision and vision is multiplied by first steps, unless we change this little math symbol here. And if this math symbol changes and resistance is greater, change will never occur. There are 2 things that will prevent change from happening as we look at this formula. 1, resistance is greater than our desire to improve. And so we have to be honest, again, where are we at? What's going to be the greatest resistance? What's going to be my greatest resistance? Coaches, if I'm being honest with you, it's usually going to be us. It's going to be ourselves. It's going to be committing for the long haul and really digging in and being strategic here. The second thing you have to know about this formula, and I am not a mathematician, I have a degree in physical education. I'm pretty decent at ping pong. That's about it. But the second thing we have to realize about this equation is this. If we were to put a 0 in any of these spots, if you were to take discontentment and you were to throw nothing in there, you get 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. If you're super discontent, but you don't create a vision, 0, you're going to get 0. If you're discontent and you have a vision, but you're paralyzed by your own, just overwhelmed, and you don't take a first step, here's what you get. You get 0. And so 2 things we got to protect against as we make these changes is 1, identify the resistance, what it's going to be, and how you can make your discontentment, vision, and first steps greater than. The second thing we have to look at personally, we have to go, okay, what area am I going to struggle and be tempted to put a 0 in? Here's what it would be for me. It would always be first steps. Listen, I'm super discontent. I have this vision. I got it down on paper. What's the first step? The liberating truth is this. It can be a tiny step as long as it's a first step. You don't have to solve all this week. Let me just go ahead and tell you, you're not going to solve it all this week. But multiplied over time, you can begin to make some great strides in improving the culture and the health and the potential of your team. The goal is not just to have the best team, it's to maximize the potential of those that you've been given leadership opportunities over. And so that's where change really comes in. So I'm going to stop my share screen here. And if you have any questions, here's what I want you to do. There's a little chat box down here. I'm going to make a note in here, type questions here. And if you have a question, put it in the chat room. And I'm going to open this up for panelists and attendees. I'm going to send this out. So type question here. Can you give Stacy Rucci, Penn State graduate. All right. Phenomenal athlete herself. Husband Todd played for the New England Patriots. But Stacy, can you give examples of sarcasm of coaches? Yeah. Player does something and it's not good. And here's what we say. Oh, that was a great job. That was a great job. Now, here's what you say. That's not a big deal. I'll be honest. I don't think that's a big deal until you multiply it by 50. Until you multiply it by 50. Here's a form of sarcasm that we don't even think about. Well, hey, you will never be our starter. I call that a terminal statement. I stole that from my good friend Mike Lingenfelter. That's a terminal statement. Hey, don't ever tell a kid never. Hey, we're going to continue to struggle to give you the starting position if we continue to make these mistakes and we don't see some improvement. What I did with that statement is I facilitated a feedback loop so that improvement could actually take place. If I don't facilitate that feedback loop, then improvement never takes place. And so the goal in coaching is we've got to facilitate a feedback loop so that we can help them get better. Some of the other sarcasms is just, it's all the little like innuendo, like you're an idiot, all that. Listen, I'm raising teenage girls, man. They're butthole. I say this about every teenager. They're stupid and they lie. All right. So my kids are buttholes. I can say it, but I have to try to help them overcome that. And so forms of sarcasm, if constantly on the court, all I'm hearing is you're an idiot, you're stupid, all these different things. Here's what I'll tell you. You're going to have a hard time like maximizing your potential of the team. And listen, this has nothing to do with being soft, or I tell coaches all the time, you know, because we did some cheesy stuff as a Division I wrestling program all the time. It's only cheesy till it works. It's only cheesy till I show up with my crew and we continually kick the crap out of your crew. And so some of these things are a little bit outside of coaches and players' comfort zones. But I hear coaches say all the time, well, they're just weak emotionally. All right, then freaking work on it. Like if they're weak emotionally, address their emotions. Like if I want my kids to be mentally and emotionally strong, then I've got to address those things. I've got to get them outside of their comfort zone there. So one of the common questions I'll ask my kids is I'll force them to tell me who played well on their team, because it's not natural for a teenage girl to praise another teenage girl. Well, listen, that's important to me as a parent. Here's what was important to me as a coach. I wanted our athletes to be for each other. Now, they could compete against each other, but when that competition began to create division, I better step in as a coach and begin to do something about it, because that division will destroy my opportunity to maximize potential. And so we see it coming. And so one of the things that I would just encourage you to do is when you hear this negative language and this sarcastic language, just try to nip it in the bud. All right. And it doesn't mean you're not having fun. Okay. You're going to have fun. You're going to play. I mean, I was the biggest like prankster there was, but you don't want the common language of your program to be sarcasm. And so any other questions out there? We got Brent Carter on here too, man. Rock star of a coach. So any other questions in the chat room, man? Well, hey, man, thanks so much for those that jumped on today. Truly, I want to be, man, my heartbeat is helping coaches and parents, and I was one of you, so I feel your pain. And so if we can do anything to help you, be sure to reach out. You can email me, heath@abetterwayathletics.com. But we would love to be a resource to you, your team, your program, whatever, to help your coaches create some of these things to help them on the journey. So, man, have a great day. I always say this: coach them hard, love them harder.